Hey, Brent here, bedroom studio guy. Today's video I want to talk about song structure and song production. Um, in all the videos we often watch about mixing and mastering and plugins and tutorials like that, uh, not very often do you hear the song itself being discussed. I'm sure there's tons of videos out there, but today I wanted to hit on that a little bit because if you don't have a roadmap for the song to begin with, you shouldn't even bother hitting the record button because you're just going to end up in a big mess. Now, that's not to say that you can't get creative during the process as you're going along. I've done that many, many times. Sometimes I'll have what I call a sniglet, which is just a guitar riff and a rough vocal idea, usually not even the right lyrics or anything, and I'll expound on that and keep building it up and until I have a full song. Then I'll kind of piece it all together and arrange it and then record it the way it should be done with the arrangement. So speaking of arrangement, now it's genre specific, right? If you're making dance or EDM or some songs aren't going to have any changes at all. There may not be many chord changes. It might just be a driving beat and whatever. I'm not real familiar with that kind of music. I've heard some of it, and but in terms of traditional rock and pop, you'll have your basic structure might be an intro, might be a drum intro, might be a riff. The whole band might come in at the same time, go into verse one, sing verse one. Sometimes it might be verse two, chorus. It could be verse three, lead break, back to a chorus. You might have a bridge, outro, all sorts of stuff. But generally it's, verse, chorus, verse, bridge, chorus, verse, chorus, out, something to that effect. And then within that, it's really important to have ideas that support the sections. I learned a lot of that when I recorded my first album at GAT3 Studios in Charlotte, which is an amazing, full-on professional studio that had just the most mind-blowing analog gear you could ever have the honor of recording with. That's for another time. But the owner and producer taught me a lot about structures of songs, because in my naive way of thinking, primarily I'm a drummer, but I play all the instruments on my tracks and guitar. I'm thinking, hey, yeah, record a guitar. You want to do, 5 more guitar tracks, so make it bigger. Doesn't make it bigger. It'll actually make it smaller sometimes. You'll have frequencies fighting with each other. If you don't know what you're doing and you think, well, more is more, right? No, more is not more. Sometimes in this case, you're better off with just 2 guitar tracks that are well recorded, well performed, than 10 guitar tracks all stuck on top of each other. It's going to sound like you hit a bee's nest, and you're going to wonder, well, how come I don't have this huge wall of sound? Doesn't quite work that way, but I digress. So anyway, I'm going to show you some of the things that I've done on one of the songs. I'm going to use one of my latest songs from my last record, because I think it's a good example of little things you can do during the flow of the song to try and keep the listener's attention. Because let's face it, we're living in a world where people have a nanosecond attention span, and if you don't give them something to listen to new all the time, they check out. That's just the way it is. So you want to keep things interesting, and you want to hold the listener's attention by, throwing in little spices, little things to make them go, oh, something new for the ear to latch onto, if only for a second. I think the bands back in the 70s did a really good job of that. Because, had bands like Kansas, and some of the progressive rock bands really had a great sense of doing things, Rush, doing things that would, they'd be different all the time. So you could listen to the song many, many, many times and pick up something new each time. I think with a lot of today's music, sometimes that's kind of lost. And but be that as it is, I will show you in this example some of the things I did with a simple pop song, and you can use some of these ideas in your next recording as well. So I'm gonna fire up Studio One and show you what's happening with this track. All right, so here I've got this song pulled up. It's called I Tried. It's a very sugary pop track. It starts off with drums, because that's what I wanted to do, kind of a rumba drum intro. And then the riff comes in, the song's in F. Then you'll hear the verse, and then I'll play it through to the first chorus, and then we'll start talking about what's going on. I'm going to stop there. So that was the first verse. Pretty straight ahead. Kind of sets things up where I kind of threw in, because I tried, I kind of little trick to give the listener an idea that, oh, you already mentioned the name of the track, but that's not the chorus. So going into verse 2, you're going to hear where I change things up a little bit. So we'll come out of verse 1, and you heard I did a little accent at the end of that to segue into verse 2. But then in verse 2, I'm going to introduce some other guitars, and check that out. You'll hear what the difference is. Instead of just chunking along, you'll hear more guitars coming in. Here's that accent. Drum fill. We've known each other since you were 17. So you heard that dun, 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 dun. Simple little melody I'm throwing in there, and then I'm going to harmonize that, and you'll hear that in a second. Here we go. Since you were 17, I was your friend and your lover and everything in between. Now I gotta know why you're choosing now to let me go, 'cause I tried. Alright, so yeah, listen to those in solo. It's actually just an octave, sorry. But it turns into a harmony at the end of the run. So kind of cool. So again, giving the listener something different to listen to. All right, so going into first chorus. So backup vocals. All right, so you heard little tails on the end of that blam blam little blam blam little blam blam, right? Again, something different. Now going into the lead guitar, it's a short lead guitar, but the rhythm behind the guitar is similar, but not exactly the same as the verse. That sometimes can be a great thing to do. If you just played the lead guitar over the same verse, it could be, unless it's some absolutely phenomenal guitar break, it might kind of be a little bit boring maybe. But I've changed the rhythm underneath the guitar just enough to keep it interesting. So check that out. That's the same, but it changes here. And the drums from the beginning. All right, so that kind of short and sweet, and like I said, I had that rumba drum intro kind of snuck back in there. All right, so now verse 3, I'm gonna change it up again, this time with the guitars, and I'm gonna have the guitars doing two different things, and I'm gonna have them hard panned right and hard panned left. I'll play it through and then I'll isolate it for you, and we'll talk about that. I hope you're happy now that you're finally free. I didn't know that I had your heart under lock and key. I want you to know no one else could treat you half as good. So if you're gonna go, all right, so let's listen to that. I'm going to solo those guitars. All right, so instead of just chunking on the F like I did in the first two verses, kind of break it up like that. And also, to even getting further on that, if you have two different guitars, maybe use two different guitars. If you got a Les Paul and a Strat, or a Tele and a Strat, or whatever, record one track with one guitar, and then switch it up and record the second track with a different guitar. If you don't have but one guitar, then use a different pickup. Record on the bridge pickup for one of those guitar parts, and then go the neck pickup for the other side. And if you have a guitar with only one pickup, then use a different amp sound, different tone. If you only have one amp sound, which I don't know why you would only have one amp sound, use a different reverb effect on one versus the other. There's a ton of things you can do. All right, so moving on, goes to the second chorus. too crazy there.
I'm not gonna cry, 'cause I know I did my best by you.
Okay, so this is kind of a little reprise kind of thing, where I'm summing up the whole song, and I got some drum accents there. Listen again.
I'm not gonna cry, 'cause I know I did my best by you. I'm not gonna lie, 'cause I'm happy that we're finally through.
Drums again.
'Cause I tried.
I don't know if you caught it, but I also put a little bass run in there. Listen for the bass guitar. I'll try and crank it up.
My best by you. I'm not gonna lie, 'cause I'm happy that
Right.
we're finally through. 'Cause I tried and gave up.
Choruses, and then
Leaving when I wanted to walk away.
now doing an old kind of Beatles trick here. I'm gonna do a double turnaround on the last chorus type thing, just to sum up the whole song. You'll hear that now.
No looking back now, baby. I'm looking for someone new to keep me satisfied, 'cause I tried.
You know, if you caught that little riff too with the drums and the bass and the guitar. Listen again.
'Cause I tried. Leaving when I wanted to walk away.
So here's the double,
No looking back now, baby.
little octave guitar.
Someone new to keep me satisfied, 'cause I tried.
And then out with the drums. Doing a fade, and I've got some heavy phaser and flanger on the drums. So yeah, there's a lot going on there in a 4-minute song. So you can see where kind of threw a little thing here and there and changed it up verse by verse as it went along, and throw little drum things in there, or a little tight riff, or just panning those guitars in the third verse. You could just go nuts, you know, just don't overdo it. Who knows, that could be overdone. But give the listener something new to listen to as the song goes through the journey. Other thing too is, and I need to do a better job of this myself, is use automation. So you can lift your choruses up a little bit by a dB or so, you know, just to give them a little more added punch when they come up. You know, keep the, and sometimes you want to just drop guitars out altogether, maybe on a verse. Maybe you want to substitute a keyboard, or just bass and drums and the vocal. And then when the chorus comes back in, it smashes you in the face because now the guitars come roaring back in. In other words, you don't want to have just a static mix. That's boring. People don't have any attention span unless it's, I can't even give an example, but give the listener something new to listen to all the time. And I'm sure, as you know, in Studio One, you can put in little notes on your track notes, and track notes are helpful. If you type in, okay, Strat, what I'll do is I'll go Tele, bridge pickup, and I might put the amp sim that I used, you know, on that track. Next track, Strat, neck pickup, whatever, you know, just to keep things so if you have to go back, I'm like, oh man, what guitar did I use? What did I do on that? You have a little notation on there. If you don't know how to do that, I'll show it to you real quick. All right, so you want to add some notes. Go to your wrench icon, always click your wrench icon. For the longest time, I never clicked on it, didn't know what I was doing with it, but it shows you a lot of cool things. So click on that. Scroll down here till it says channel notes, and you'll see a box pop up. Boom. So in that box, say under the kick drum, you could say, I don't know, Ludwig 22-inch, I don't know, just whatever. And you're going to see it will also, when you go to your track view, it will also be on your track view over here, Ludwig 22-inch, okay? And of course, if you want to populate your icons for your instruments, go again, hit the toolbar, the tool wrench, go down, click channel icons, and now you can click on here and pick your kick drum, whatever, and you have your channel icons. So that's pretty handy. So I hope this was helpful. Just some song arrangement tips. Use your imagination. If you listening and you think it's starting to just sound all the same, spice it up. Throw in some guitar parts, take away some guitar parts, add some keyboards, do what you got to do. Apologize for the audio quality. I'm still learning how to do all this video stuff. It's not my expertise, but I will certainly invest in get better at it as I go. Anyway, please hit like and subscribe and the notification bell if you like what I have to say, and I'll keep making more videos. Alright, in the meantime, fire up your DAW and go record something. Make some music. Make it interesting.